11:30.
11:30.
Okay.
Back on.
Yeah.
So,
So Addison County, we shouldn't laugh at.
yeah. So, good morning. It's the final segment of, our tenant natural resources and energy work for Wednesday, February 21st. So I just wanted to check in with folks. We just had some discussion with the commissioner about 258. And, we're taking testimony all week, scheduled to vote on it next week. So we have time to work on things, and I just want to keep moving right along. But in terms of, I think we're having a hearing in the form of lots of testimony yesterday, but we'll have, we're gonna be into short visits from many people. So we have 30 witnesses for tomorrow, sort of the 3-minute visits, which sometimes people worry that that's not much time, but we can say plenty in 3 minutes.
You get to the subject.
If you get right to it. So, and then on Friday, we'll schedule another 20. So, and we're trying to balance basically for folks,
Here for fairs.
I am here for another.
Oh, you can listen.
I'm just getting a note. Okay, so we'll adjust schedule apparently. Oh, well, thank you. So, Mr. Pro Tem,
Yes.
nice to see you. Pleasant surprise. We don't see you in here all the time.
Because
I just wanted to stop by and congratulate the committee on the river corridors bill. I think it's the centerpiece of our response to flooding and mitigation and sustainability. I know it was a tough bill to get out, but like S5 last year, I think this committee has been carrying the weight of climate change on its shoulders. And I just want you to know that you are all very much appreciated for that. So I know it heads to appropriations.
There's a
Now,
little bit of money in there.
I understand, and I understand that got more toward the end. But I will do my level best in there to make sure that it gets funded. And I'm just excited because former mayor of Montpelier here, Montpelier is where we are situated, it's our home. And we should be thinking outside the box about the rivers and the flooding possibilities, and this committee is doing it for the Senate, so. Much appreciated.
Worcester Rand.
Go Senator Bragg.
Yeah, they can.
For steering the vote.
Yeah, well, another, it's hard to get away from these metaphors. And we christened it with a new name on the home stretch, the Flood Safety Act.
Nice. Yeah, corridors was always a little dry.
That's it.
Or active didn't just steer the boat on it.
She used it as a throw the whole time. I mean.
We had, or everyone was at the oars.
You know, our cab race can now.
Anyway,
Thank you.
see you soon.
All right, so we have some folks in from the fairs. I don't know if you want to just jump right in and introduce yourselves. We voted a bill out a little sooner than I thought, so we have some open time and
Awesome.
happy to be able to see you while you're in the building today.
Awesome.
Want to join us at the table?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And you and your colleagues could introduce yourselves.
So I'm Robert Congdon. I am the president of the Vermont Fair and Field Days Association, as well as the president of the Vermont State Fair down in Rutland.
Oh, nice.
And I'll let.
I'm Cindy Cahart. I'm president of Madison County Fair and Field Days.
I see. Good to see you again.
Tim Shea, I'm the executive director of the Champlain Valley Exposition.
So as I shared, I'm Robert Congdon, and I am the president of the association as well as the Vermont State Fair down in Rutland. What's coming around to you right now is a little bit of an economic data sheet for you with some impacts as far as what the fairs offer to our state economy. And how we see some impacts and some ways that we have impact in our local communities and the state economy as a whole. Part of what we are here to talk specifically with this committee about is the 3-acre legislation. And just to share with you some of the concerns as it has impacted us as fairs. And the 3 fairs represented here are in the first phase and the first round of the 3-acre legislation. So we are the ones that are experiencing this first. And then the rest of the fairs in the state are going to be picked up in the second round when the Connecticut watershed is looked at in the future. So for those of us in Rutland, our current situation, unfortunately, is that there's really no easy way to put it, is that with the legislation as it currently stands, we will be out of business in the next probably 5 years. And what we are currently looking at is.
Can I just double check, make sure that we're talking about the same thing? So we're talking about the stormwater provisions.
Yes.
And the 3-acre trigger.
Yes,
3 acres or more of impervious surface, then you need to have a permit.
correct.
And do you have no permit prior?
So we, when we were made aware of everything, we have filed the initial permit process and we are in feasibility and the start of engineering.
Yeah.
Our current situation is that our facility, our property, does not, we've been told already by our engineers, does not provide the necessary space and the necessary area to build something.
Okay.
We
You're pretty
potentially,
much almost in a neighborhood right there.
we are, so we are 60 acres, but we are, yes, there's neighborhoods surrounding us. We do not have access to the city stormwater system. We may, for one small portion, potentially be able to talk about that, but for the vast majority of the property, we do not. So our impact fee as of right now looks to be between $800,000 and $1 million. Which $800,000 to $1 million, which obviously unfortunately for us is not something that we have the capital to do. And there's only so far that you can raise your entry fees before people will not come.
Yeah. What's the ticket cost now?
Right now, we are at $12. We're looking at potentially going to 15 this year.
It starts to get expensive if you're a family.
Correct, and the other thing is we try to keep our admission fees reasonable so that families that come off the grounds have the ability to see a show, ride some rides, maybe eat, you know, we want them to have the ability to do other things.
Yeah. And sorry, another quick question.
Sure.
When you said impact fee, so you don't have the space to be able to do the mitigation on site.
Right.
So you're in the category of if you can't mitigate, then you pay an impact fee.
Correct, and there are, so again, we're in the middle of feasibility right now, and then engineering will have to come after that.
Okay. And so that's where I'm missing something. If it's an impact fee, what's the engineering stuff for?
So what they're trying to determine is so we are in at just over 17 acres of impermeable surface. What reasonably out of that 17 acres can be treated? Are we able to do any? At this point, our initial look is the three areas they have targeted to potentially put some sedimentation type ponds in. One of them is our camping for the fair, so it would take all of our camper space. The other is where we set up some rides, so we lose our ride space, and then the other is a pretty substantial parking lot. So those are the 3 areas that they have looked at that might be, utilized.
Yeah.
But they also come at a cost to us as an organization. They also come at the cost of lost revenue. Which of course hurts on the backside of the whole process. So, and obviously, what we can't treat, there's gonna be an impact fee that we're gonna have to pay. And to build those potential 3 areas, if we were to build those 3 areas, that's another, we've been told up between $1 million and $2 million to be able to even build what is potentially, with all of the infrastructure that would need to be built, all of the piping, all of the tearing up, what would potentially have to happen would be very substantial to even build those 3 areas on our facility.
And so Rutland has storm sewers. Is your engineering feasibility study?
So-
Looking at connecting.
Yes, and the mayor just walked in the door. One of the possibilities and one of the feasibility things that's being looked at is, the city has gone into extensive, separation of stormwater and sewer. They've done a lot of great work. One of those areas that it was separated, was, part of the fairground borders that. The question is capacity. If we are going to get permitted to dump a bunch more stormwater into that system, does it have the capacity to handle it? And then the other issue is that this current, what we've been told by the engineers, and Mr. Dunges can speak to it, he may know more than I do, but we've been told that the current separation that took place in that part of the city, goes directly to a watershed and is not considered a treated stormwater system, which means that we are still subject to everything because that separation was not a treated stormwater system. So,
Okay, so does that mean that water out of a sedimentation pond might be eligible to go in because things settle out, but
correct,
water that's just straight off the ground that could be contaminants or sediment
correct.
can't be added to that.
And again, even if we were able to plug into that stormwater separation, because it's not treated before it hits the actual watershed it dumps into, it's not gonna be considered treated if we dump into it, so it's still gonna be an impact fee, or, it's still gonna be technically untreated stormwater, because we're contributing to that
Yes,
system.
we'll be into more CSO events.
Correct. And then, I don't wanna take too much time, because I want you to be able to talk to Tim and Cindy, but, we, also have been told that the flip side is that in order for us to be able to build the 3 areas that potentially have been targeted, again, they come at great cost to us, the land needs to perk. And our current situation is our section of Rutland is all clay. And the likelihood is that it is not going to perk. And our engineer, very respected engineering firm, has already come to us. They've worked with the city on many projects as well, has already prepared us and said, you need to prepare yourselves for significant impact. And again, if the impacts go through as they are now,
How are you handling septic now?
we are within the city, and so septic does go into the city, septic system, yeah. So all sewage is treated,
Yeah.
there's no issues there.
Yeah.
I know the city is also working on Moonbrook, that's part of the other discussion that's going on, because that runs through our property. And there's been some discussion surrounding that and how we might, I know, we'll be having conversations in the future about that as well.
So a quick question before we talk with the other folks right here is, what is you're making us aware of the situation. What are you hoping, to see the state and or the legislature?
I know there's been several communications and conversations that have come out of our organization, that there has been some potential for traction, for the possibility of, due to the fact we are not open more than a few weeks a year ultimately. And we have large amounts of green space as it is, that water naturally filters through those green spaces. To consider a carve out for agricultural societies and those of us that run fairs. I know there has been some talk of that. We would respectfully endorse that discussion. We would ask that that be considered.
Talk with DNR about this idea and then they.
I believe, so Jackie just dropped us off, she is our lobbyist and she's had some conversations across the lines, so to speak, and throughout the different groups. I'm not sure, again, where exactly the traction is, but I do know that there is some traction, we've been told.
Okay, are you also, thank you, looking for funding to do the work or more like extended deadlines or?
Well, so
Waiver.
in our situation, funding only goes so far as unless we, with the fact that we are gonna have to pay a significant impact fee,
Yeah.
and then
And that's an annual fee.
an annual fee is not gonna be feasible for us.
Yeah.
The other reality is that, my understanding is the impact fee goes into essentially the pot that allows people to apply that need to build stormwater systems elsewhere. Basically, we are penalized, however you wanna look at it, that we can't comply, and then other areas will be able to apply for that money to help them build stormwater systems. Again, for our particular situation,
Sure.
we don't have the luxury of even being able to build
Yeah.
what would potentially be required. So that's the struggle. The struggle right now is we don't have that ability.
Fair enough.
How many days a year do you operate?
So the actual fair itself is 5, and then during the summer months, we have events most weekends, so the 2 to 3 days on the weekends. Occasionally, we'll have the odd midweek type event, but primarily it's weekends, major holidays, so like Independence Day, we have one large event, but otherwise our fair is the 5 days. And that's what we're open. We shut down for the winter. So as soon as, basically we operate April 1st, if we can get, water flowing and all that good stuff, if the winter has given up its grip, and usually until about Halloween, that's about when we shut down.
It's the fairgrounds in downtown.
We are in the center, so we're right on the Route 7 corridor.
When you take the Stewart's left turn and go by the hospital, it's right there in front of you when you get there.
Oh, when you get down by McDonald's, yes, sir, yes.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I really appreciate you speaking with us today. I was totally unaware of this situation. We actually don't have a Windsor County based fair, although not anymore, although Tunbridge is very near and dear to my heart.
And Sunbridge will be part of the conversation.
Yes,
The next phase.
yes,
Yes.
that's what you said at the beginning. So if I understand correctly, the rule, the point of you paying or the point of building something is because you do have impacts on the system. So there is a cost. So without these fees being paid or remediation, essentially the regular taxpayer is footing the bill. Is that kind of the correct way to think about it? Is it the Rutland taxpayers that would be specifically having to cover the cost of the implications of them not doing this? Or where does the money, if we were to exempt, come from to pay for the?
So I think it'll vary site by site, like where does the stormwater go unmanaged?
Yes,
in its
exactly.
Current state and what are the implications there? And it's, I don't know that we can generalize, we probably have to look at each site individually, but
Okay,
to
so
the extent that once it leaves, it becomes, a more general community issue, then that's true, so.
so I'm just trying to
The
understand.
benefit of our site as well, that I would say, and Mike can speak to this too, is we naturally, from where we are, dump into basically a swamp. There's a natural sedimentation that's going to occur before it gets to the major waterway, which is Otter Creek. Which this is the Otter Creek watershed. So there is some natural treatment, so to speak, that's going to occur before it hits the main watershed. And comes to Lake Champlain, which obviously we're all concerned about.
Yeah.
That's where this is really, the concern is mitigating prior to the impact on Lake Champlain.
Yeah, the watersheds.
So
My understand, so just so I can understand, if we're going to make a decision to exempt a group of people, your argument is kind of fourfold, but one of them is that you don't feel that you're actually having that level of impact on the system.
Yeah, I do not believe, before this committee, I would say, I do not believe that we are the impact of, say, a giant Walmart got built down the street. That, is gonna have massive amounts of asphalt, a large continuous roof that's going to dump massive amounts of stormwater into a system that could potentially make it to Otter Creek.
Yeah.
Again, our parking lots are grass areas, so those are not hard top surfaces. We do have a track, but that track naturally drains into that grass area before it goes elsewhere. So the concern that we have is, yes, the impact, but we would agree with the sentiment that it's largely treated naturally before it makes it to the watershed.
Okay, so.
As opposed to, again, the big box store or the big, whatever we're talking
Okay.
about.
So so basically you're saying that there isn't that $800,000 or $1 million cost to actually be translated to the system.
That would be our argument for sure.
Just wanted to understand.
How many acres is your total site again?
We have roughly 60 acres total, again, we are in, and this is prior to any of the engineering, which we've been told that the number likely could creep up a little bit. We've been put in at roughly just over 17 acres of impervious surface.
Okay, great. We haven't introduced ourselves, so, Senator White, why don't you kick it off?
Oh my gosh, hi, I'm Rebecca White and I'm one of your Windsor County state senators.
Thank you.
Mark McDonald, Orange County Tonnage Fair.
Yeah.
Chris Bray from Madison County.
Ken Watson, Washington District.
Dick McCormick also.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for making time for us, and I'll turn it over to Tim Shea, Champlain Valley Exposition.
And, as we go to Tim, so if two more folks come in, if you could introduce yourselves.
Sure, I'm Mike Dunges, Mayor of Rutland City. And I'm John Richardson, I'm the Mayor's Executive Administrator.
Thank you.
How did you just happen to be?
We were here for other stuff, we heard you were doing this one. We're here to support Robert.
Tim Shea, Executive Director of the Champlain Valley Exposition, and I too appreciate your time. I know you folks are very busy here. The 3-acre impervious surface rule, our campus is 130 acres, and we're the proud owner of 33 acres of impervious surface. The rough numbers to mitigate it to about $50,000 an acre, so we're looking at a potential expense upwards of $1.5 million. We have a current stormwater system that would need enhancement. We have stormwater retention ponds. The challenge is one of the economics. We too, believe the cleanliness of Lake Champlain is very important. I think the optics sometimes are fair because you charge $10 for a hamburger and this and that, you're rolling in money. We're larger than most, no question there, but on a good year, we're break even. Not to mention that the capital we put back into our facility to maintain it. We had to replace a storm drain, our culvert rather last year, $100,000.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that when you're a nonprofit, and your goal is to break even, let alone generate any revenue to put back into the facility to fix a roof, to fix something else. So we have an expense like this, potential $1 million plus repair. If you look at possibly selling land, you can't go to a bank and borrow money, but there's no pay. But if you went to a bank and to demonstrate, okay, we're going to generate revenue to pay this back. It's hard to swallow $1 million expense as a facility. We started our engineering work. I think we can. We won't need any offsets. We can. If we do move forward, we expand our existing stormwater system. But again, it's a significant expense. Not to mention the impact it has on the organization. Really, to rip the place apart when you're still trying to host events that generate revenue to pay for it. So we need to cancel events if we have to put more catch basins in throughout the property. It's really overwhelming as an organization. And we're just here to remind folks of the impact that's happening. We're really proud of the role we played during when COVID occurred. We were a vaccination clinic, we were a surge hospital, we were food distribution, we were a testing site for COVID. Most of that was done on grass. We were paying a stipend for some there, but you need facilities like ours, like these fairgrounds, when things happen in communities, you see it across the nation. When bad things happen in communities, oftentimes fairgrounds are set up as staging areas. Look at when you look at the storms in Florida, they bring on utility trucks and they're staged in 84. Where are they? 9 times out of 10, they're at fairgrounds because we have space. And that's not unique to us, but we have to be viable because there's a role that we all play far beyond the 10 days of our fair or whatever these fairs are. And we want to be good community citizens, and I think we are. We're very conscious of the footprint we have. But the math, it doesn't work, try to pay for $1 million fence.
Your facility seems, more permanent buildings and more pavement, stuff like that. So do you operate year round? I mean.
We do operate.
I'm of the feeling that you're busier than the regular fairground.
No question, no question. No, we did make an investment years ago to build our big building, so we are more of a year-round operation.
Yeah.
But it's all the scale also, it's not sales because we're bigger and year-round, we can absorb a cost like that, but no, we're actually more year-round.
Okay. And are you on city sewer and water there, or how do you?
Correct, we are, we're on city sewer and water.
Okay, so this is, what would you be? Not to go too far into the weeds or anything, but the stormwater that you would manage, by virtue of the rule, would you just be doing drainage that would then connect you to the city, storm water system? Or do you have to deal with it on, you have to do
We deal on our own.
remediation?
Yeah, and we currently have a stormwater retention pond, and an existing system. But it would need to be up to date, expand one thing we'd have to do, expand our existing stormwater pond and then put in additional catch basins to treat the water.
Okay, so catch basins is in grades, collecting water around the fairs and then taking it to the pond.
Correct.
Any questions for Mr. Shane? No, Mr. Watson.
Well, I was just gonna ask if you were envisioning the same kind of thing that Mr. Congdon was suggesting, or do you have a different ask?
No, I mean, selfishly, if there is ever an opportunity, I know it's complicated here, but an exemption for agricultural fairs. Would be something we certainly don't be welcome to, but again, I know there's a lot of moving parts to this. Go to can of worms here, what happens there? But again, I just go back to the role that we put beyond the fair. I say we at all affair, far beyond the fair. What we are a community asset.
Sure, and the same similar kind of things are coming up in schools.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Great, well, thank you for, Senator White.
No, I was just gonna ask, I think one of the points that makes you slightly different than the other fairs is that you are year round. So it's not necessarily that you can absorb the cost better or not, it's that you are using the facilities more than, let's say, someone who has a smaller fair that is only a certain period of time versus you are using system, or you are.
Correct, but whether you're open or not, stormwater, whether you're open or not, it's still, if the rain comes down, whether you're open or not, your system still needs to be up.
Yeah, I think I just had heard from the previous speaker that they felt that because they're not using the facilities in that way all the time, that might be why they, yeah, so I think it's just a difference for you than potentially the other players. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Gayard, good to see, at St. County Birds, we don't get that many in here, and they're usually crowds us out.
Wow. Yeah.
So our fairgrounds, we have gone through the permit process. It's cost us $36,000 to apply for the permit, to have the engineer do it. And so we've got $36,000 and it's $2,500 a year to just maintain that permit. And the engineers estimated our catch basin, treatment basin to be $497,000. And so when the last time when the engineer was there, I asked, I'm president now, this is my first year. Yeah. So I said, so last year was extremely wet. And the people that bring the rides had 4 rides, they couldn't set up because the ground was unstable. So one of our plans was to make that corner of the ride area solid, put some gravel in so that next year, right, they could put the rides up safely. And the engineer said, you have to get a permit. And I said, we already have a permit. But no, you have a permit for what exists. So now you need to apply for another permit. And that can't tag into the treatment basin that we already have. So we have 2 other buildings that we plan on putting up in the next 5 years. So I said, so if we made some kind of 5-year plan, I mean, we haven't built this treatment thing yet. I said, if we give you our 5-year plan, could you then design? No.
Oh.
Because our permit is for what it is. And for everything hereafter, we need to re-permit and treat according to that water. So that is really, for us, we don't even know which way to turn, because how do you move forward?
You need, so they're saying, I know you have a tent that's very expensive. to
Right,
rent, hard to
right.
get. It's
Right.
such a good deal. We're thinking
Right.
about putting up a building for the
Right.
tent.
Right. Right.
So you can't say we're 2 years out, we want to put up a building, can we size our treatment to accommodate an anticipated building?
Apparently, because we already applied for a permit and got a permit for what exists, so we can't. That's what the engineer,
Oh, that's what your engineer said, not someone at DEC or from ANR.
So it's a stormwater permit from DEC.
right,
But your engineer who did the design for the permit, or the folks at DEC said they couldn't get the permits,
it's what the engineer.
which is the same? No.
Yeah, I couldn't,
Oh, maybe we should
I
ask.
couldn't engineering,
So we can, right, but you're in the same jam, even without
Right.
any building,
right,
$500,000
right,
of additional investment for the physical plant you have now.
Correct. correct.
Okay.
And in the same breath, we don't really have appropriate spot to put this said.
The one that's
detention
required,
treatment.
the
Right.
one that's required now,
Right.
yeah, and
Right,
can you remember, I can't remember, actually, I'm embarrassed to say, I don't know the price of a ticket. Because the Fair Association gives us.
Entry level.
they were $12, but we are going up to 15 this year.
Still free for us.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And our gates are shut for 6 months of the year, and we had no pavements, just gravel roads and lots of grass, but too much roof.
Okay, and have you, so your conversation with the ANR so far, or is it just your engineer who said you're gonna have to do permits basically?
He understood, yes, so that's the way he
They usually
understood.
know
Right,
system pretty well. Senator McCormick.
Yeah, I'm thinking first of all, the Rutland Fair and Route 7. That is sort of a dirty trick for you folks, if you look at Route 7. From about 5 miles north of Rutland to 5 miles south, it's all impervious surfaces already. It's all commercial. You got this one agricultural fair in the middle of it. Why are we picking on you? I'm sure.
Well, yeah, and just to speak to that for a moment, we already are the recipient of Route 7 stormwater from that section. From about, what's Trolley Square up
Yeah.
to Ocean State job lots, all of that water naturally comes to us as it is and was built to come onto the fairgrounds as part of its treatment. And then we were looked at, actually, prior to Mayor Dunge's coming into office, we were looked at as a possible site for the neighborhood to the east, and we kindly refused because we knew we had enough of our own problems. We had to kindly refuse and say, sorry, we can't help the city in this way. You know, we want to be good neighbors, we want to be good stewards of what we have, but at the same time, we couldn't afford to take on more, knowing what was coming with our current issues that we're facing, so.
Now, how is this calculated of the impervious surfaces? Do this tops of tents count?
So tents do not count, so it's your permanent structure, so it's all roofs, roof lines. My understanding is, I'm not sure how many years ago, but gravel surfaces did get put in as impermeable surfaces now. So our racetrack counts, any gravel roadways count now, and of course asphalt. My understanding is sometime in the last 5 to 10 years that got put through in a bill, I believe, that gravel got added. So that gravel got added within the last 5 to 10 years, I believe, so.
Did the top possibility of grandfathering come up?
There've been talk, but my understanding is that there is no, the way the bill was written, there is no grandfather.
Right, well, so thank you for making us aware. We'll reach out to DNR. I talked to Senator Starr about this already. When I was on the Ag Committee, we always saw you folks. I think there's about $500,000 a year that goes out to fairs, but that's peanuts compared to that's.
Well, that's,
It's not enough to.
it's like a capital grant, which ironically we used for roads. So.
Well, I can remember some years where people had to get towed by tractors out of the
Yes.
fairground.
Last year was. So, you know, for us to upgrade the parking lot, which is what all the fairgoers would love. But. I mean, what with gravel we bring in is gonna cost us double because of the permit.
Okay. All right, well, any other committee questions for Ms. Gayheart or any of the team or Mr. Mayor? Do you wanna offer anything up from the sidelines there?
If you don't mind,
Yeah, please.
I can say a couple of things, and I'll speak more specifically to Rutland, but some of the challenges with these impact fees specifically is what Robert's talking about. We are going through, because of DEC and A&R, a water wastewater separation. So as we take our wastewater and our stormwater and we separate those things, we no longer have the ability to treat the stormwater that is in place. So if we had kept those together, that may have saved some of the need for the expense of being able to put the system. So we have one rule saying we need to separate here. We have another rule saying, well, if you say you kept that combined, you'd be fine. And then the impact fee, as Robert highlighted, and as you're seeing, for Rutland, there's a lot of impact fee. And speaking specifically for the fairgrounds, the reason is because of our soils, because of our
Heavy soil.
inability to perk, and then even we have 3 like rivers and streams running through our city at any point. So some people are right up against those, which means there's no actual way to move that water away before it gets there. From a city standpoint, and this is something I would love, and I'm sorry I can't help the 2 other counties, but we prior to my term as mayor or even being on our board, we did not look at our flow restoration plan for Moonbrook. I put that on our Department of Public Works to dig deeply into that and to put together that plan. I know it's a little bit after the marker, but me our city putting that plan in place and getting that plan done, if that impact fee were to come after the fact, it would be 50% or less than what the fair would have to pay now. So I'm gonna be putting that letter out to Robert and the other 3 participants saying that the city is dedicated to doing the flow restoration plan for our segment of Moonbrook. And my hope is that while you're working through this, looking at exemptions for fairgrounds, which I fully support because they do have a lot less impervious surface than per acre than even some of our neighbors. I'll be putting that forward and hopefully you can consider that as well as our commitment to saying in our municipality that we're going to be trying to resolve that issue.
Can you explain the connection between the restoration plan and the fairground? I'm not quite sure.
Sure. So the Moonbrook runs right through the fair. Our flow restoration plan, that's really important, you know, that's sediment, getting these, clearing some of it up. My understanding from talking to the engineers at A&R is the reason that a municipality like ours, or, you know, fairgrounds like the three that are here representing, are have to either remediate or pay an impact fee is not because they're the ones generating the phosphorus leaks necessarily going into the water, but their heavy flow can disturb existing compounds that are in those streams, right? And not being an engineer in this space, that heavy flow of water in those waterways then kick up that phosphorus and throw it into the lake actually. The flow restoration plan would say, hey, we're going to accept that heavy flow from all the surrounding areas, and it's not going to kick up as much of that sediment, as much of that phosphorus. And then the reason the impact fee is reduced because of essentially the impact to the lake would be less. So that's my understanding of why that flow restoration plan is.
Okay, so the flow restoration plan is in place and accepted or whatever by A&R.
Yeah.
Then when you're evaluated, the flows from the fairgrounds require less offset because there's less.
Correct.
With those flows.
Yeah, so currently, Moonbrook is in as an impaired watershed. I would say that probably our section is the least impaired.
It is the least.
The rest of Moonbrook that runs through the neighborhoods is really the concern, because there seems to be a lot of untreated runoff into Moonbrook in those particular neighborhoods. That have greater pollution impact, whereas we kind of are a natural settling area for the problem. But because it was classified as an impaired watershed, the fees assessed are assessed at 100%, whereas what Tim has experienced and what Cynthia experienced, those fees are assessed at 50%. And my understanding is DEC and A&R are working with Mike on that, which is great. However, the initial from our engineer was unless there is some sort of a bend in that area right now, they have also said, we're sorry, it's a little too late. Like they're not right now willing to bend on that, which is what Mike's working on. He's working on trying to get them to understand that there is work being done and there is a goal to get it from an impaired watershed back to an unimpaired watershed.
So do you have a timeline for that?
Yeah, so I do, and to use a somewhat agricultural analogy, the cart and the horse are about 10 miles down the road, or I mean, we're not even putting it before, we're far behind, so. We probably, you know, had we done the flow restoration plan 5 years ago, you would have seen the 50% impact versus the 100% impact. The fact that we're starting now, and it will likely take us 3 or 4 years to actually get that plan in place. And then at that point, the impact fees will have been long gone, that's the challenge. So my ask on that piece, not just for the agriculture, but across the board, is that you consider my commitment and our commitment as a city to getting that done as if it had already been done. I know that's a hard ask, but it's something that we're willing to put forward our commitment to do. And then as far as now, that's why those exemptions are so important now, because that's a 5-year timeline and they can't. I look at this, if you took, I think somebody said, you know, if you look at that, I think you were saying that asphalt from Route 7 all the way down. If you took a big picture of from a satellite of the city of Rutland, and you looked at all of the combined 1 acre, quarter acre, 3 acre, 2 acre, all of those smaller properties, there's more impervious surface on those properties than there is when you take that one landowner of our agricultural society and look at their per acre, right? And the imbalance is very difficult. So when you look at it that way, I do think that the ask from these agricultural societies is very, very reasonable. Sure.
Great, well, we are a little just after noon, so we're gonna wrap up the morning, but glad that our schedules both worked out.
Thank you so much.